Hi, I'm Marc, and welcome to the weekly Outside Views report on the politics in Africa and Arabia. For the first time since the explosion disaster in the port of the Lebanese capital Beirut 2.5 years ago, a court has issued a verdict in the case and named the guilty. The High Court in London ruled that a chemical company must assume liability for the victims. That's what the Lebanon Bar Association announced on Thursday. The judges saw it as proven that the company called Savaro, based in Great Britain, supplied large quantities of ammonium nitrate to the Mediterranean country. The highly explosive chemical, which has been stored in the port of Beirut for years without protective measures, is said to have caused the explosion. For the relatives of the victims, it is the first legal success in the matter. Because in Lebanon itself, the investigations are making little progress. Accused ex-ministers and those responsible from the judiciary have been delaying the investigation process for a long time. Many Lebanese blame the political leadership for the catastrophe, which they accuse, among other things, of corruption and a cover-up. The Lebanese Bar Association had sought the civil action in London on behalf of several relatives. The plaintiffs hope that the verdict will give impetus to further processes. In the course of the proceedings, the London judges now want to set a compensation amount for the victims, according to the Bar Association. In order to avoid a fine, officials at the company had reportedly tried unsuccessfully to disband Savaro. The group initially did not comment on the court decision. The explosion in Beirut in August 2020 killed more than 190 people and injured around 6,000. The detonation also destroyed large parts of the port and surrounding residential areas. The German federal government has drawn attention to the problem of the mass shipment of second-hand clothes to West Africa. In Ghana, for example, so many used textiles and textile waste arrive there that domestic production has a hard time and enormous environmental problems are caused. I think you also have to raise awareness among consumers, said Federal Labour Minister Hubertus Heil. When it comes to consumption, you can be more careful and think a little more about what you buy. High and middle income people in Western countries also buy many things that they, to be honest, hardly need. Heil and Development Minister Svenja Schulze, both from the Social Democrats, visited one of the world's largest second-hand markets in Ghana's capital, Accra, during their trip to West Africa, which lasted until Friday. Around 100 containers with around 15 million items arrive there every week, and some indeed are from Germany. The presidential and parliamentary elections scheduled for last Saturday in Nigeria are overshadowed by the murder of an opposition candidate. Senate candidate Oyibu Chukwu was ambushed and shot dead in his way back from a campaign rally. That's what the Labour Party said on Thursday, and it was probably a political attack. The police confirmed the incident, which had already occurred on Wednesday in the southeast of the country. There was initially no information about the perpetrator or perpetrators. Africa's most populous and economically strongest country was called upon to re-elect the president and both chambers of parliament on Saturday. The official results are expected in this week. President Muhammadu Buhari is governing in his second term and is therefore not allowed to stand again. With the arrival of a new species of mosquito in Kenya, there are growing concerns about an increase in malaria. During a routine test in the Marsabit region in the north of the country, experts from the Kenyan Research Institute KEMRI discovered mosquitoes of the species Anopheles stephensi, which is originally native to South Asia, according to a post by Kenyan broadcaster Capital FM, which KEMRI tweeted on Monday. The British broadcaster BBC reported that these mosquitoes are resistant to insecticides used in Africa. According to the hospital data from Marsabit, the cases of malaria there have already increased, although it is actually not the usual malaria season. According to Camry, the native mosquitoes are less active in the dry season, while the immigrant mosquitoes can adapt well to the climatic conditions and also to the environment. There are fears that malaria will become a year-round problem, spread more to urban areas, and reverse progress made in the fight against the parasitic disease. In the past decade, the carriers, which originated in Asia, have already spread to parts of Africa. According to the information, they were reported from the Horn of Africa as well as from Sudan and Nigeria. The Egyptian government has cancelled a planned visit to Cairo by German Human Rights Commissioner Luise Amtsberg, apparently out of irritation at German activities on the subject of human rights. The entry was stopped through diplomatic channels and cancelled or not allowed by the Egyptian side. That's what the German press agency learned on Wednesday from government circles in Berlin. In the past few weeks, the Green politician would have wanted to travel to the North African country with a delegation, among other things, for talks on the human rights situation in Egypt. The Egyptian side did not give an official reason for the step, at least they say that in Berlin, but it's probably a reaction to Germany's activities at the COP27 World Climate Conference in November. At the 2-week United Nations conference in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, Germany campaigned for human rights with several events and some high-profile guests. After being followed by plainclothes security guards, the German delegation complained to the hosts that they were being watched and filmed at the pavilion. Organizations such as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch repeatedly described the human rights situation in Egypt as devastating. An estimated 60,000 people have been detained since President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi came to power in 2013. There are regular reports of overcrowded prisons, torture, unfair mass trials, and executions. The government has announced improvements, but has sometimes brusquely rejected warnings, for example, from the German side. 3 so-called blue helmets were killed in an attack on a United Nations convoy in Mali in West Africa. The UN mission MINUSMA also announced on Tuesday that 5 other soldiers were seriously injured when a vehicle drove over an explosive device near the city of Bandiagara in the center of the country. The country from which the soldiers come was initially not disclosed. As part of the UN stabilization mission, more than 12,000 soldiers are deployed in Mali, including more than 1,100 men and women from the German Bundeswehr. The Germans are mainly deployed near the city of Gao in the northeast of the country. Mali, with around 20 million inhabitants, is considered to be extremely unstable politically. Islamist terrorist groups are also active in parts of the country. Since the most recent coup in May 21, the country in the Sahel region has been led by the military government of General Assimi Goïta. The federal government wants to withdraw the Bundeswehr by May 24th. No, not May 24th, May 2024. There have recently been repeated arguments with the Malian government, which has been criticized by Western countries for its close ties with Russia, among other things. And this concludes this week's report on the politics in Asia and Africa. You still hear the mother of the colds in my voice, but I'll see you in my next video tomorrow. I will be back.